Hello, everyone. This is Robert Paltz, and let me set everything up here, and we will get everything organized here. Okay. It says that you should be seeing the screen now. Okay. Okay. This is a video I'm calling "How did our family get to Oklahoma?" And basically, it's in about once a year now. I've just started this, and I'm trying to see how it works. I was trying to find ways of making my genealogy and the family history relevant to my family. And one of the ways I thought of was to ask questions of the family, what interests them in family history. And I got about 15 questions back. So that was refreshing, uh, especially since the 10-year-old seemed to have the one of the best questions and seemed to have quite a bit of knowledge already about the family that I didn't know she had. And so this is the response to one question. Um, this is basically it was how did the family get to Oklahoma? So I took basically six family lines that are in Oklahoma. They all came together to take and form me. Uh, so that's how we got to Oklahoma. And so the first one I'm going to cover is the Kennedy line, and they came out of Ireland. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll do the Higginbotham line, and they came out of Barbados. They actually did Europe or England to Barbados, but the line kind of stops in Barbados right now for me. Then we'll do the Arnold line, which came out of England, and then we'll do the Hetsch line, which came out of Germany. I put the Germans at the end because, I'm always talking about Germans. Well, we're not all Germans. And then I did the Kern line, which came again out of Germany. And then I did the Pulse line, which probably have done the most information and shared most information with people on. Okay, you should be seeing the Kennedy line. This is the pedigree chart for the Kennedy line. You can see James Stewart, Burns Edwards, David and Alexander. I always love it when they have names stacked up that are the same. Let me see. Why isn't this working? I may have to start this over. Let's see. Okay. The Kennedys came out of Ireland, as I was talking about. I have Belfast on this slide, so you can take and see that. Oh, now it's going to work. They came over in 1783, so they were quite a bit after the Kern line, which we'll talk about later on. They came out of Ireland, which is up in northern part of Ireland, so they were in Northern Ireland. And 1783, I've got to look that up and see when the Phantom was over there. I'm sorry, they're before the Kerns. And the one that we were interested in, they went to Pennsylvania, and they had this family, Burns Edward Kennedy. Burns Edward Kennedy, still in Pennsylvania, had James Stewart Kennedy. James Stewart Kennedy fought in the Civil War. He was born in 1830, so he was about 30 years old when the Civil War came out. He was a lieutenant in the Civil War, so that makes him a little older. James Stewart was actually living in Kansas at the time. And so he came down, he came back to Pennsylvania to fight in the Civil War with the people that he knew. He was floating around Iowa, Leavenworth, Kansas. And it wasn't until after the war that they ended up in Osage, Kansas, Osage County in Kansas, where he met Otto Kennedy. and he married or he had Otta Kennedy, and Otta Kennedy then married Beverly Wright Pulse, who is my great great grandfather. So that's how the Kennedys got here. Okay, let's try this. This is the Higginbotham line, and there's their line, and Emmanuel, Moses, Thomas, Charles. Now, you need to take some of these things with a grain of salt. A lot of this is internet derived right now and not totally proven. I'm working to prove it. They came from Barbados at the current thinking, and it was about this area. This was St. Philip in St. John's Parish or whatever in Barbados, and so that's the part of Barbados that they came from. And they came out of the West Indies and they went to basically Virginia. And then they eventually ended up in Georgia, that branch did. Moses Higginbotham went from Virginia to well, he stayed in Virginia and died there. So he was his parents moved on down to Georgia, and he took and stayed in Virginia. May have been because Thomas may have been living with his daughter. Okay, and so they went to Virginia, stayed in Virginia. Then Emmanuel came out, and he moved to Kentucky, and here he is going to Kentucky. Okay, then we have William Kimley Higginbotham. William Kimley was in Kentucky. He stayed in Kentucky. And Melinda, there we go. Melinda Higginbotham married Bryant Arnold, who then went to Oklahoma. And then they had a child, Eliza B. Arnold, and she married David Hetsch. And there's a lot of stories. This is the line in here that I've got that story about the one of them being shot by a deputy marshal and survived it. And then they had Ella Mae Hetsch, who is my grandmother. And this is my grandfather, and this is my grandmother. And there's my father, and there's his sisters. Okay. Okay, the next line would be the Arnold line. We've already talked about the Hetsch line. We talked about where that comes in. There's where that comes in, and there's where the Higginbotham line comes in. Okay. They came from England. Here's London. I narrowed this down. I squashed this down so that you could take and see something you recognized. So they came from this coastline of England. They came over in 1635, so it's real early. And they arrived in Massachusetts. Then they went to Rhode Island. And so anyway, they're floating around between Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and then they go to Virginia. And so Thomas Arnold's down in Virginia. Isaac Arnold then, you'll notice that Isaac Arnold is reused many, many times in this family. It's very difficult to keep this family separate, and you see the possible error here I've noted. Some of these Isaacs may be duplicates too. I just keep on trying to straighten them out. So they came over to Virginia. They're staying in Virginia. Okay, they're in Virginia, and finally they get down here, and another Isaac moved into Kentucky. And then David is still in Kentucky. They have Isaac Bryant that then goes to Oklahoma. Isaac Bryant is in Oklahoma. He has Liza B. Liza B. marries David Hetsch. And we're back to my grandmother again. Okay. Next would be the Hetsch line, obviously David Hetsch. So they came from this part of Germany. Now I have Karlsruhe down here for reference, and here's the Rhine River going up through here. Here's Heidelberg. Here's Mannheim. Okay, so keep that because I keep changing the scale on these to try and get the pictures in. But these are basically along the Rhine River, in the Baden, they like to call it, area of Germany. So they came over from Germany, went straight to almost straight to Kentucky, where they had David Hetsch. Now they're coming over in 1826 to 1860. So this is after the Kerns. And so we'll talk about the Kerns next. And then they came over to here. And of course, here's LMA, and here's my grandmother. Okay. So that's a pretty quick trip for them, 3 generations. Next is the Kerns. Now, that's my mother's side of the family. Since she's the only one that came to Oklahoma, she's the only one I've analyzed in this process. And so this is the Kern family. You can see here's William Bernard, here's Joseph, here's Christian, here's Mathis, so on, and Christiani. Okay. And they came from this section. It's Osendorf, Hessen, Germany. Okay. You'll see I've got Karlsruhe down here. If you bring this up, here's the Heidelberg. So you'll find that the Higginbothams came, not the Higginbothams, the Hess came from this section quite a bit later, 3 to 5 years later than this. And of course, the Pulses came over from this area. They're right in that area of Karlsruhe, and the 1730s. So basically, this is the 3 German families that came to Oklahoma. So they immigrated in 1854, which is before well, I'm sorry. They sent their daughter over in 1854 to take and she was a mail order bride, basically. I guess she had met this boy in Germany, and he came over, and so they sent her over to marry him. She prepared the way for the family who came over in 1860. So they came over in 1860. Christian Kern had several sons, some of which made it over. And the one that's most important is Joseph Kern for me. And Joseph had a lot of children. 2 of these children are nuns, Catholic nuns. So he was born in Germany. He died in Indiana. He had quite a farm and quite a reputation in Indiana. He had my grandfather, who was I think there's 13 children here, and he was the 12th child. So he was the 12th child in the family. He married Margaret Helen Kathleen Bamey, the beginning of the long names in the family. And of course, here's my mother, and this is my mother and Harry Jr. And I've made all these living that are living people, except for David, who is no longer with us. Okay. So after they left, after Mom left Indiana, she came down to Midland, Texas, and we arrived at Midland, Texas. We had a couple more children there, and then she went to. They got married, by the way, in Florida. They had me in Indiana, so I'm the oldest. So they got married in Florida. They were in Indiana in 1946. So and that's when I was born. And then uh, they're now in Guthrie, and then they went on to Missouri. Mom went on to Missouri. That's when they had the divorce. Okay. The next would be the Pultz family, which eventually becomes the Bowes family up here. Bowes was the name in Germany. Actually, on the ship over, there was one record keeper that kept it as Pultz, Pultz, and then two different spellings of Bowes. They're from this area of Karlsruhe. It's Ingolstadt, Karlsruhe, Baden-Württemberg, Germany. So here's Karlsruhe. Here's the Rhine River. It's gone up through here. You see Mannheim. So you can take and get in Heidelberg. So you have the over in this area, somewhere over in this area, you have not Higginbotham's, the Hess family. Okay. And then up here, way up here, someplace is the Kern family. Okay. And they came over from Ingolstadt in 1737 on the ship William. Wish I had that much detail on the rest of these families. We'll have it someday. They came over and they stayed in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That's now Lebanon, Pennsylvania, county of Lebanon. Lebanon split off from Lancaster after they left there. There's a kind of a famous book about Palatines to America. And in there, they talk about how the Palatines finally settled. At the very end of the book, they talk about how the family settled in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Well, that settlement in that book is within 20 miles of where my family settled. So they came over and they did Pennsylvania. Then they headed for Virginia. So they came down, and this is Virginia. It's now West Virginia. It's Jefferson County, West Virginia. It was Jefferson, Virginia. At one time, it was Berkeley, Virginia. You can go back far enough. It's got about 5 different names. Anyway, this part of the family was in Virginia. There's many more branches of the family. All these branches of the family are in Virginia. And then they all packed up and went to Ohio. This was new evidence for me. I'm doing a research project right now, and I found out that John David Pultz was born in Virginia, which I did not know. And I figured that out from the research project. But I didn't even know these two were married. I thought they had been married in Ohio. So, okay, we believe they took the Wilderness Road to the Kanawha trace through the Cumberland Gap. Then they believe they followed down the Ohio River to just south of Highland County, and then cut a road for wagons to Highland. The reason why I feel that way is that another branch of the family came over and they documented this trip, and they were coming over from a section of Virginia also. So we have David, we have George's family coming into Virginia. George has a couple more children in his family, George W. Actually, he has a lot more children in his family, of which George Wesley is the one of interest. It's interesting. You should note this. Here's Beverly Wright Pultz. That's my great-great-grandfather's name later on. I'm assuming he was named after this Beverly Wright Pultz. This Beverly Wright was about 13, 14 years old when he died. Sounds like a brain aneurysm from the books. And so I think George Wesley was his little brother. I think he was severely affected by that, and he named one of his children after him. So he came over. He married Amanda Chaplin. Now, it's possible he was in college at the time. This gentleman over here had founded a college in Ohio. It's a Methodist college in Ohio. It's in Maryland, Ohio. It's a little bitty town. And it's suggested in some of the books that he went to college. And about the time he would have been in college, he ran into Amanda and married her. She's in Ohio at the time, but she's not down in this part of Ohio. So I suggest that they were both in college and met there or somewhere around there. Amanda's parents are going to Illinois, and these two had just gotten married. And just after the marriage, they show up in Pike County, Illinois. Okay. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children there. And then there's good land in Kansas. And at that time, he was working in a hotel, managing a hotel. He didn't own it; he managed it. So he came to Kansas, and they came to Greenwood Township, Franklin, Kansas. And so he's here. George is here. Beverly, who was born in Illinois, came over. Now, when he was about 18 years old, he married Florence Fury. Florence Fury died when she was about 6 months after she had Desi Ellen. And then Beverly married again, and this is Desi Allen. I've got a problem here. Oh, here he is. He's married. I got this duplicated, don't I? Okay. I got to take care of that. Anyway, he married Otta Kennedy. Now, they lived in Missouri for a while and had a couple children in Missouri, which I don't show in here because they weren't there very long. When the land run of 1889 came along, Beverly didn't run in the land run, but his father and his older brother did. And they sent a telegram to him and told him to load up a trainload of wood and bring it down. So the day after the land run, or the week after the land run, he arrived by himself, because I'm sure he left Flora. I'm sorry, at that time it was autumn in Kansas City. He arrived and they started building the city of Guthrie. Okay. Clyde was born in Missouri, and then they came down and they had all these other children in Oklahoma, including my grandfather, who is where? Why isn't he on here? Mabel, Lita, Harry. There he is, right there. Okay. In the meantime, Desi, who is now staying with Amanda Chaplin and George Wesley Pauls, is in Guthrie, and she marries Homer Scovern, and they have a child, and that's Flora May Scovern, who is later on adopted by this family and is raised by this family, and that's Aunt Flora there, and this is Aunt Mabel. Those are the two people that got me into genealogy. So this is Harry Beverly, and he married Ella Mae Hetsch, which we just talked about, the Hetches. And then they had Harry Jr., which is my father. And he ended up in Indiana, Texas, and back to Oklahoma. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like it. I do appreciate your time.